Welcome back. We are starting on Chapter 7, The Wooden Horse. Inside fridge, Button was lying in the curl of a celery stick. He had used the celery leaves to wipe off the margarine, and now he was chomping on a slice of honey roast ham. Celery was good for a lot of things, he thought, but it didn't taste as nice as ham. They had found the cheese, a big old chunk of holy deliciousness, the food the pirates loved the best. Button knew they would need a decent plan to get the cheese out of fridge. Just for now, though, he and Lily were too tempted by the choice of food available. Button had lost his breakfast to the woodlouse army, and knew if he wasn't quick he'd lose all the tastiest morsels in the fridge. Once old Uncle Noggin arrived. The only thing they couldn't eat was the cheese, as it had to be as big as possible when they handed it over to the mice. Meanwhile, Uncle Noggin and the captain had reached the tabletop, huffing and puffing with the effort. Uncle Noggin slid a pepper pot up to the side so that he could climb up and inside. The captain had a quick look around for Mr. Toohey and then quickly followed. "I say, what's that dreadful smell?" he said after a squelchy landing. "'Tis even worse," said Uncle Noggin. "My dear chap, you didn't." "Did you?" "I did," Uncle Noggin replied, looking a bit green. Then the can tilted over to one side and lifted into the air. "Take cover!" Captain Crabsticks ordered, burrowed deeper into the dog food. Button stared at the can that had just appeared on the shelf in fridge, then jumped as the captain's face peered over the side, followed by Uncle Noggin's. "I think this is supposed to be chicken flavor," he said, "but I wouldn't recommend it." They climbed out, smelling badly of the stinky pet food. "It's given me gas," said Uncle Noggin. "Everything gives you gas," said Button, handing them both a celery leaf to wipe themselves down. "I had to try it," Uncle Noggin insisted. "I needed something inside me. I would have wasted away to nothing otherwise." And then, distracted, he exclaimed, "Oh, is that the cheese? It's a beauty." As Button followed Uncle Noggin's gaze, an idea suddenly hit him. "What was that story you told me once?" he asked. "Something about a big wooden horse and soldiers? From that big book, you know, the one you got crushed inside a couple of weeks ago?" "Ah, you mean about the Trojan horse," Uncle Noggin grinned. "One of my favorites, that." He perched on a nearby mushroom, took a chunk from one side, and between munches began the story. "Many, many, many years ago, the ancient Greeks were at war with people called the Trojans. One day a huge horse made of wood was left at the gates of the Trojan city, Troy. The Trojans thought it was a peace offering from the Greek army, so they wheeled it inside the gates and admired it all day long. But what they didn't know was that the Greek army was hiding inside the horse's tummy. When darkness fell, the soldiers all climbed out of the horse. With their deadly weapons, they took over the city, and that was the end of Troy." "Why do you want a story now, young fellow?" quizzed the captain. "Aren't we supposed to be thinking of a way to get inside the mice's den?" "I think Button has a plan, Captain, sir," said Lily, grinning. "Captain Crabsticks, please, could you cut a hole in that cheese?" asked Button, still staring at the enormous lump. "Of course! Niftiest sword on the 7 seas, at your service," said the captain with a little bow. "I mean a hole right out of the middle, you know, so it's hollow," Button continued. "Ah, you mean like the wooden horse in the story," said Uncle Noggin, tapping his nose. "Exactly," Button said. "Button, you're a genius," Lily exclaimed, clapping her hands, then realizing how cold they felt. "By the way, it's freezing in here. We need to get a move on." And before they knew it, the captain had drawn his sword and was carving his way into the middle of the hunk of cheese. Everyone filled their mouths and their bags with tasty pieces. To the pocket pirates, good cheese was pure treasure. It was better than any gold or sparkling jewels. When the lump was hollow, Button stood back and pondered. How would they lower the cheese to the floor? Then he had his second brilliant idea of the day. Button pulled a shoelace from his bag and unrolled it. He threw one end over the rails of the shelf above, catching it as it came back down, then looped it around the cheese and tied it tightly. Lily and Uncle Noggin grabbed the other end of the shoelace and tugged hard. "Heave-ho, crew!" cheered the captain as the cheese rose into the air. Button climbed up onto the margarine tub and jumped aboard. "Pull to the edge, please," he asked Uncle Noggin and Lily. As the crew shuffled to the edge of the shelf, Button pulled on the shoelace to make the cheese swing. Then Lily and Uncle Noggin slowly let out the rope from their hands, lowering their cargo to the bottom shelf. "Treasure ahoy!" shouted Lily. Button slid down from the cheese, untied the shoelace, and stuffed it back into his bag. "Now," he said cheerfully, "we just need to work out how to open the door and get out of here." Chapter 8. Cheese on Wheels. Button held the huge stick of celery at one end, and at the other the captain and Lily wedged it into the seal of the door. Button pulled it back with Uncle Noggin's help, and then very slowly the seal unstuck itself and the door gently opened. "Last chance for food shopping," said Uncle Noggin as he shoved his face into a large pile of fancy chocolates. Button grabbed a slab of fresh fish from a packet with clear plastic wrapped around it and stuffed it into his bag. They carefully squeezed through the open door, pushing the cheese out of the fridge and onto the tiled floor. "Uncle Noggin, I need you to head to the old toy box and wheel back the wooden train," Button instructed. "I'll do my best, but I think I've eaten too much," Noggin admitted as he hobbled off. "The other way," said Lily, hiding a chuckle. "Aye, aye," he said. "So it is." And he set off in the opposite direction, puffing and blowing and trumping out loud. The light was fading now. It was the perfect time of day to wheel the cheese down the hallway to the mice. Mr. Toohey wouldn't be back. A day in the shop always wore him out, and they knew he would be resting in front of the TV in his favorite chair, trying not to nod off. After what seemed like hours, Uncle Noggin returned, pushing the wooden toy train across the floor toward them. "Are you ready?" asked Uncle Noggin, who by now was panting even harder. "We're ready," said Button and Lily. Together they heaved the large chunk of cheese onto the carriage. It was a bit too wide and wobbled unevenly in its place. "It'll be okay," said Uncle Noggin. "I'll take it slow." Button grinned. All Uncle Noggin ever did was take it slow. "Shall we?" said Button, turning to Lily. "Let's do it," she replied. They threw their bags into the back of the train and climbed into the hole that Captain Crabsticks had expertly carved into the cheese. Then Uncle Noggin picked up the slice that made the door to cover them up and fastened it into place. "Are you okay in there?" he said. "Shipshape," said Lily. Button couldn't answer. His mouth was already full of cheese. "Ladies and gentlemen, the train now leaving the kitchen is the 6:45 service to Mouse Hole," Noggin announced. "Please join for connections to bookshelf and toy box." "Well done, old thing," said the captain. "You'd be a splendid train driver if you weren't a pirate." Uncle Noggin gave a little toot-toot and began to push from the back. Captain Crabstick steered from the front, and off they went. All seemed to be going smoothly until, as they rounded the corner into a puddle of light cast by the street lamp outside the shop window, the captain suddenly stopped. "Oh, crumbs!" he whispered. "What's wrong, shipmate?" asked Uncle Noggin from the back, still trying to push the train. "Doyle! Abandoned ship!" The dark shape of a dog loomed in front of them. It sniffed and came closer. "Crew, it's been an honor to be your captain," said Captain Crabsticks, bravely straightening up, ready to face his doom. "Eh?" said Button from inside the cheese. Doyle's face was now level with the captain's. A long pink tongue shot out of the dog's slobbering mouth. "Captain, I'm coming!" shouted Noggin, hobbling toward them as fast as he could. But before Noggin could do anything, the dog started licking the captain from head to toe, covering him in drool. After a few long licks, Doyle wandered back into the dark kitchen. Captain? Are you still alive?" asked Button. "I think so," the captain said. "Must have been the dog food he could smell." "Whew!" gasped Uncle Noggin. "Thought you were a goner, sir." "This ship won't go down without a fight," the captain cheered. "And now for those dreadful mice." And that is the end of Chapter 8. So we're going to take a small break and join me next time for Chapters 9 and 10.